During these days, we watch films from many of our countries and share the best productions and memorable motion pictures with our Canadian friends. This effort has been possible thanks to the coordinated work of the GRULA and the Canadian Film Institute, whose executive director, Tom McSorley, has done a remarkable job since the first edition of this festival. This year, Mexico is very proud to present Son of Monarchs, a 2020 production awarded at the Sundance Film Festival. The film tells the story of a Mexican biologist interpreted by Tenoch Huerta, who lives in New York and returns to his hometown in Michoacan when, quote, the journey forces him to confront past traumas and reflect on his hybrid identity, sparking a personal metamorphosis, unquote. In this context, we organized a conversation about the film industry from the standpoint of two people involved in it, an actor and a researcher, both arriving all the way from Mexico City. Our first guest is Dr. Alejandra Gomez Camacho. She's an independent writer and researcher specialized in film and photography as cultural iconographer. She holds a doctoral and master's degree in history of art, a bachelor degree in communications, and a graduate certificate in contemporary art and religions of the world. She has been a teacher and professor at different prestigious universities in Mexico and has given lectures on cinema in the country and abroad. Her most renowned work focuses on Buñuel, cinema and old age, and illness in cinema. She's also author, co-author, and editor of art publications. Welcome, Dr. Gomez Camacho.
Thank you, thank you.
Our second guest is the talented young Mexican actor, Tenoch Huerta. He studied the degree in communications at UNAM and later started his acting career inspired by his cinephile father. He made his debut in Nací del Precipicio almost 15 years ago and has appeared in over 50 films and 10 TV series ever since. Some of them are Tierra y Libertad, where he portrayed the revolutionary hero Emiliano Zapata, Mozart in the Jungle, and the Netflix series Narcos Mexico. He was recipient of the Ariel Award for Best Actor for his performance in the film Días de Gracia. His most recent appearance was in Son of Monarchs, and I learned from Wikipedia that we may soon be seeing him in the sequel of Marvel's Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Welcome, Tenoch.
I don't know nothing about it.
On behalf of the Mexican Embassy, I thank you both and I thank you all for being here. Our gratitude also goes to Frida's Mexican Kitchen for providing this delicious lunch of Mexican sandwiches. Thank you, guys. To open and moderate this conversation, I am pleased to leave you with the film expert, executive director of the CFI, lecturer at Carleton University, CBC radio film review analyst, and a very dear friend to all of us, Mr. Tom McSorley. Thank you.
It's a great honor for me. Thank you, Soleil. It's a great honor for me to be asked to talk to you in this public forum here at this beautiful Embassy of Mexico. So thank you both for coming to Ottawa, first of all. The weather is, we arranged the weather for you.
Very nice.
Somewhat warm, we're getting it. We often joke that the Latin American Film Festival is the harbinger of spring in Ottawa. The sun is coming north, so here you are. So I wanted just to start with a very general question about, Soleil outlined the many works that you do academically, but your passion for cinema obviously is what animates your work. So if you could tell us a little bit about how you came into this passionate embrace of cinema.
Thank you. For me, cinema is everything. Because when I decided to study art history, I was focusing myself into the cinema as a cultural iconography.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to study cinema in this way, more complex. What are the icons that we are looking all the time what are the meanings of the culture. So I love painting, I love sculpture, I love any manifestation of art. But whenever you see a painting, for example, it's quite easily to focus on the iconography and to take all that history, and you can understand a little bit in a passive way because the painting doesn't move. The painting is just like that. But when I was starting to understand the film as a cultural iconography, the language that we are seeing, it's like the fourth movement, because everything is in certain space, written in a certain language with a special narrative that you have to follow the way that the director is presenting some culture, but not all the people, of course, the spectators, we are not going to receive those points of view in the same way, because we have to then use all the analysis of the iconography, what remains of a certain culture that is portrayed on that film, what are the society, why the society lies there as on the structure, and of course all the relations that we have in the discourse, the cinematic discourse. And I think the cinema is the most complete mirror that we can have, because that reflects what we are, all the passions, all the pains, all the sufferings, all our realities, our desires. And I think it's such a complex phenomenon. That's my passion, so that's the reason why I write about cinema.
Right. I'll come back to the mirror. That's a really important idea. And Tenoch, how did you arrive in the place that you're in now in terms of your own career path and your interest in moving images and being part of that moving world, the imagination?
By accident.
By accident.
It wasn't my intention to be an actor. It was something that just happened. I studied journalism. I was working in multiple things before I became an actor. My last job, it was like a cameraman in a reality show.
Oh, wow.
By the way, the people were singing.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. And seriously, I enjoy it a lot. But yeah, the thing is, in Mexico, you can see actors with my colors of skin in the screen.
Right.
In the screen, it's only white people
Right.
in the screen. So for me, if you can identify yourself with the images, so you can dream about something that you are not able to see. That idea that you can dream whatever you want is not true. You just dream about the things that you receive. All the stimulus
Yeah.
that you receive during the day make your dreams. So I've always watched people like me on movies or series or soap operas, and it was just the guy who opened the door, who
Right.
stole the wallet,
Yeah.
or is the kidnapper,
Yeah.
right?
That's not typecast.
Exactly. So, but then the narrative changed in the movies in Mexico. So now the movie was about the guy who opened the door.
Right.
Was about the guy who the thief,
Right.
or about the kidnapper. And of course, they need brown-skinned people to make, to do those characters. And that's it. They open the door for people like me and multiple actors like me. And we start to work on movies, and now our characters were more important in the narrative, and that's why they opened the door for people, not just me,
Yeah. Others.
other actors and actresses. And but of course, I love it. I enjoy the experience to be part of a movie because I totally agree. It's a mirror.
Mhm.
So if you want to understand a society, you just watch the movies. The worst movies, I mean,
Yes.
the really bad movies, the
Happier.
best movies, everything. You can see them. You can feel. You can see their dreams. Why, for example, in India, they are dancing all the time.
Right.
Why? So that's a good question to understand how that society works and what they are, what are their dreams.
Right.
So that's it. And for me, it changed totally my life.
Mhm.
My life was running in one direction, and suddenly I'm the first actor, the first artist in my family. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it changed completely, not just me, but my family, all the people around me. So I think the movies is not it's yes, of course, something to entertain the people, but at the same time to be part of, it's a powerful tool to change the reality,
Mhm.
the immediate reality for the people, not just the spectator, the people who is involved in movies.
Right.
All the people who is involved in art, it changed your life completely, and it's for me, it's a blessing.
Mhm. And has it been different for you in the televisual world as opposed to the cinema world, or are they the production mode, but also the delivery system of Narcos, for example, is small screen as opposed to the cinema, which is it a different process for you, or or as an actor or performer, you're simply doing the job?
The performance is basically the same,
Yeah.
but of course, for example, Narcos, we made an episode 60 or 50 minutes
Right.
in a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks
Right.
per episode, and in a movie, you spend 6 weeks, 8 weeks to make the same
Right.
quantity of time. So it's a faster process.
Mhm.
It's more industrial process
Right.
to make a series.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you are sacrificando, sacrificing the quality.
Right.
You are not sacrificing nothing, you know. So it's just a different process. And of course, because you have a different intention, because series mainly are made to entertain.
Mhm.
Movies are made with an artistical
Yeah.
you know, an artistical purpose.
Right.
So, I mean, of course, it depends on the movie,
Yeah.
right? Of course, the movies where the people flies and have superpowers is not.
That's your next one.
It's not. It's not
How
quite
do you
philosophical.
prepare? How do you prepare for your character, like Narcos, for example? How do you get that the structure of the character?
Well, I made a research about the character because that guy exists in real life.
Right. And you were a journalist, you said.
Exactly. So I went to the everything, the news about him,
Right.
but and videos about him,
Ah, okay.
because there are videos and you can hear his voice, you can see how he moves. So that is quite difficult because. Of course, you can make whatever you want, but the people then go to YouTube and check the video and say, no, that guy is not like this guy, you know? So
Right.
you need to imitate in a
Yes.
way.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the other hand, I had to make a research about the legend, not the guy, not the real
Right,
guy.
right.
Because the series was made it's a portrait of the legend of
Uh-huh.
these people.
Right.
The Black Legend, of course,
Sure.
but it's not the reality. It's not. The real character
Mhm.
is quite different. So I read the script and I have to make a portrait which
Right.
fits
Yes.
in the script. So the only character possible to fit in the script was this legend about this guy, this Black legend,
Right.
and I did it, and And that's why some people, for example, say, oh, but they were mean, they were different, they were evil people.
Right.
Of course they were.
Yeah.
But I have to go to that legend, but at the same time, what is inside of everything? A human being, a simple human being. If we perceive the other guy, the other people, the other reality, like a available reality, even though we are talking about the narco trafficking
Sure.
or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, but you can see that a human being behind it.
Mhm.
Then you can understand. Then you can make a policy. You can make everything to solve that problem. Because if we continue seeing the other people, I mean the narco traffickers like evil
Yeah.
entities,
Right.
like demons or whatever, without the human part of them, then it was impossible to avoid to prevent
Mhm.
the society create that kind of
Right,
monsters.
of course. Yeah,
So you need to go to the cave
Right.
and you need to understand what is happening inside.
Yeah.
If that cave is the human heart,
Right.
and then you can make better decisions and you can make a different whatever, to solve that problem. So it was
Right.
part of my compromise
Uh-huh.
in the series. Try to show the people this is a human being
Sure.
and what happened on
Right.
his
To
life
this person.
to create this monster.
That's interesting. And I wanted to come back and it relates in a way to what you were saying earlier, Alejandra, about cinema as a mirror. And Carlos Fuentes has this great book and phrase called The Buried Mirror, which is, I think it's an Oltec or Toltec burials of mirrors.
Yes.
And what the task of culture is to disinter the mirror, to dig and dig so we can actually see. But of course, a mirror is two things. It's something that reflects us, but it's also something we project into.
Exactly.
So I was interested in what you were saying because your studies of Mexican cinema, Buñuel particularly, the image of Mexico, the identity of Mexico, let's say, as it is explored in cinema, that's something that you're very interested
When we analyze his films, we see Mexico,
in.
the whole a whole generation, the problems he was very worried about are very interesting portrayed on the screen. And for example, and it's very interesting that Buñuel, he didn't take care only about the poor people, but he portrayed perfect the highest
Yes, absolutely.
levels of the society, as well as all our myths, the way that we see the religion, because he was fighting with himself, with the religion matter.
Yeah.
He didn't want to think that he was a religious man, but he was fighting with his own process.
Mhm.
And he laughed and about the religion, and he wanted to be not profanador,
Profound.
not
Profane, oh,
profane,
okay,
not
right.
only a profane, because that's very that's such a hard idea
Mhm.
and a very polemical issue.
Sure.
Totally politically incorrect to be profane
Mhm.
about the religion on the films, but he did it in a master's way,
Mhm.
marvelous way. So we have Viridiana, we have all of those
Los Olvidados.
films, Los Olvidados, and Los Olvidados is one of the most. I think it's mostly because it was los descastados, the poor people,
Mhm.
but the people who didn't have home, who didn't have a name, and the people that in fact wanted to be reformed, because when we
Sure,
see at
yes.
the end of the film, you can remember,
Yes, I do. Yes.
and he portrayed all the social problem, but as well in the other social levels. So
Yes.
Buñuel, we can spend the whole week talking about Buñuel, but well, I think the Noche likes. Do you like Buñuel?
A lot. No, he's great.
And what's kind of what you were saying earlier about this, the social construction of the character,
Of course.
or of what is this reality and how does it arrive with the children in Los Olvidados, for example? It's a reality, and I'm going to look at that reality and show you that there's humanity here, but there's also this other dimension.
And you know the all the symbolism that Buñuel is using, it is amazing with the animals, with icon religious, the
Sure,
religious
yeah.
icons, and all the relationships between the mother and the child, the motherhood concept. That's amazing. It's scary.
Yes. Well, it is an incredible mirror of a particular
Incredible.
society. Yes.
So, talking about retaking the idea of the mirror, it is very interesting to say that it's very dangerous when we see us in that mirror because sometimes we don't want to see us.
Right.
We don't want the image that
Yes.
the mirror portrays.
Right.
We want to cover that image
Yes.
and say, I am not like this.
Right.
So that's the other idea that
Yes.
you were pointing out.
Mhm.
Because we can see a reflection, but if we don't like it, we make up that.
And I know you're doing a lot of work in the perception of Mexico and Mexicans by the world beyond Mexico. As that image of a Mexican, let's say in a Hollywood film or in the silent era, you've done a lot of really interesting work about the representation of a Mexican. And do you think now in the 21st century, is it changed significantly, or the idea of Mexico as other people receive it?
It has changed significantly because when I started my research about the construction of the Mexican image, at first I thought I was going to talk about the construction of one image, the
Mhm.
Mexican. But then I started doing all my research from the archives at the Library of Congress and Arizona and Nuevo Mexico. And I realized that that construction didn't exist as a whole person, just a single character.
Right.
I realized and I invented a structure which I called my allegorical puzzle.
Puzzle, right.
Un rompecabezas alegórico. This puzzle is formed, organized by 5 structures. The border as a character with its own meaning, the mission, that's the religious phenomenon, the man, the male figure, the Indian figure, and the female figure. So all these figures formed at the beginning of the 20th century the image that we came to know as the Mexican culture portrayed in those films. So I had some films that many of those films were lost. We couldn't find them, but I would get some stills or some advertisements. But Ramona and 2 brothers in the days of the Padres, that's the name, Griffith films. We have those at the Library of Congress, and the 2 brothers in the days of the Padres, which is very interesting because they told the Padres. They didn't, and we're talking about the priests. They were calling them in Spanish the Padres because that was such an important movement when the missions had to be known as the center of the religion. And because of course in Alta California, those missions were so important and they didn't have the money that we had in the center of Mexico. So when the Spanish priests took the boat for coming to America, like the padre, Junipero Serra. And they had to walk and to build those missions with no money, no money. They didn't, if you go there, there is no gold, there is no, those luxurious cathedrals that we have in Mexico, like Puebla, La Catedral Metropolitana, those are money, so beautiful. But over there, we have wood, we have the paintings from Indians, and they were doing such a community, and they were so the Mexican concept couldn't exist in the beginning, at the beginning of the 20th century, without the priest, without the Indian, because they were all together, the Indians, the Mexicans, the priests, and the border as a concept. The border is a character, so interesting. The border is not just a physical line, it is a conceptual line. So that was the things that I was writing about, and that's the way I constructed that structure, and that was the portrait of the Mexican as these pieces all together. So at that time, that image was not the negative one that we think, or that it was negative, but later, like 60s, early 60s, that image, that Mexican image, became like the worst, like the stereotyped image. But in the beginning of the century, it wasn't like that, because they were not interested only in Mexico. The cinema, which is my passion, was interested in everything. And at the time, the United States was like the crisol, the container was the container of culture from all over the world. So Great Britain was coming down, and United States was like going up. So we had Chinese culture, Mexican culture, Italians. That was people from Poland, Polish people. So the cinema took care of, okay, I am going to film about my Polish maid, for example, Polish maid. But if we, as a Mexican, see, for example, the Mexican maid, because they don't want us, that was not like that. If we see that everybody was portrayed like they thought they were in the most llamativo, most expressive way, but there were many kinds of films. It is amazing, but most of them were, for example, adaptations from literary works. So those works like from Egypt, for example, marvelous films. And 1913, we have a film called La Momia Azteca, for example. La Momia Azteca. And I think 1913, it is amazing. But if Mexico, we don't like as a country to be portrayed with some characteristics, the truth is that we are responsible because, for example, 1921, and at that time, for example, the Universal newspaper, El Universal, organized a very important contest saying, okay, the most pretty girl should be an Indian. So they called the India Bonita, and this India Bonita, she didn't know how to speak Spanish, not a single word. She was from La Huasteca Poblana, and but everybody wanted to have a picture with her. Bibliesca, that was her last name. But everything was like that, you know. We are responsible to use.
For creating your own image.
Oh,
Right.
we like
Yeah.
the Indians, we love the Indians. So we had this contest, this Jicarilla movement. La Secretaría de Educación had to told the painters, Diego Rivera, Roberto Montenegro, to paint the way that the Indian should be portrayed. So I think, what if we live in a world where we are, the messages are moving, migrating from one culture to another? Of course, we do that. The films, the North American films, said, "Oh, that's very nice." So the people, so as I was commenting in another conversation, for example, the United States said, "Oh, okay, we have the charro, we have the gaucho. Let's put Douglas Fairbanks doing the nice gaucho, Lupe Vélez, 1927, and she will be the girl of the gaucho. A gaucho that is all totally imaginary because the gaucho didn't dance tango.
Right.
The gaucho danced cielitos. And the pulperias were not like that, but cinema also is a magic. Cinema is a magic because cinema, they have to create, they have to try to understand. So that's but it's the most important thing for me. I think, of course, it's the reflection of the society, our desires, but also we are all the time we're constructing those images. For example, New York, for I see the films. It is impossible that the one who is working as a nice executive would have those apartments in New York. Impossible. Only if you are Jacqueline Kennedy or something like that.
Right.
So, but we
dream.
dream, and we dream, and it's like the perfect opportunity, to sniff around, and we love to see that. So, because I think, for example, another area that I love in the films, which is what I do with it as a cultural iconography, is the architecture. The way that we see the spaces. For example, Hitchcock, a master of focusing all these monuments. It is not just by chance that we can see the obelisco in Washington, D.C. It's so big, and then the camera, he places the camera in a way that it is unbelievable, and that is because they want to transmit the idea of power, So what I do is, in all the films, you don't have anything that doesn't have a meaning. Everything has such a great meaning. Everything is with an intention. And I think here comes this intention. It is amazing because the screen and the messages are so powerful that sometimes we feel unable to discriminate. To say, okay, it's nice. No, we feel like angry, like I don't like this, or why is this so luxury? Why is this so poor? But I think that's the reason why cinema is such important. Art.
Yeah. A couple of things you mentioned I want to follow up with Tenoch. One is the idea of the border. And everybody knows the famous Porfirio Diaz declaration for Mexico, so far from God, so close to the United States. We understand that as Canadians. So we share, Mexicans and Canadians share a long border with that country.
It's a beautiful country.
Absolutely. But I'm not to give anything away from the amazing film tonight, but your character, of course, crosses borders because he's a biologist in New York City who goes home to Mexico with this Mexicanidad question, which is an interesting, indeed, in this relationship with how Mexico's is understood to be in the world beyond and how it understands itself. And if you could talk a little bit about that, because your character's fascinating in that regard.
Yeah, well, the concept of Mexico and Mexican is an invented concept. Mexico is as big as the half of Europe.
Right.
So it's diverse, and there are a lot of it's different kind of people. We have a black population, we have indigenous, we have mixed, we have white, we have people from Europe and all the rest of Latin America. Even though we have a big Chinese population in the north of Mexico, they built the train in the United States, and when they done with the train, they were kicked out of the country and they go to Mexico. And then the government organized, some people from the government organized a hunt. They hunt the Chinese people, they chase them and kill them because they were Chinese, for example. So, but what is Mexico? So, what is Mexico is just a concept. It's an idea that after the revolution, we lost millions of people. We were fighting each other. So they built this idea of Mexico, this identity. And movies were the key to spread the new idea. What is Mexico now? Right. So we have to understand that the state, I mean, the idea of nation, state nation, it's an invented nation idea. It has just 2,500 years ago in Europe. The movement, the nationalism, and the idea to build a nation is new. So in Latin America, we need to build that identity, and we take pieces here and there. And for example, the charro and all the image of the Mexican comes from the central part of Mexico, the altiplano, from the altiplano. But if you go to Chiapas, it's different. It's a different culture. The people look different. If you go to Veracruz, it's totally different. If you go to Sonora with the Yaqui community, they are totally different. Even indigenous, the word indigenous is a political category because a guy from Yaqui, from Sonora, and Maya from Yucatan, they are totally different. But all of them are under the label of indigenous. Even though they speak different languages, they live thousands of miles between each other. So, and the costume, the language, the food, the weather, everything is totally different. But all of them are under the label of indigenous and at the same time under the label of Mexicanity. So what is that? For example, what is a Mexican? The people who eat tortillas? Maybe, but not all of them. And in the north is flour tortillas, and the south is corn tortillas. So, okay, it's not the tortilla. So, what is the language? Not all the Mexicans speak Spanish. And what is then the color of skin? No, because we have white people, black people, brown skinned people. We have yellow people. So, what is to be Mexican? But the movies movies and multiple artistic disciplines, they create this image, they create the idea of a nation, and we have, of course, how do you say, hymno?
National anthem.
Anthem. We have the national anthem, we have the flag, we have multiple icons to identify ourselves with Mexicans, but culturally, it's blue. It's really blue. If go around the country, it's easy. For example, if you go to Mexico City, which is the center of the country, the political, economical,
Sure.
geographic
Right.
center, and then you go to, I don't know, Colima, it's different.
Mhm.
It's a different culture. So, yeah, the power of the movies is to create myths.
Mhm.
And under those myths, you join all the pieces together. For example, after the movie, this movie, The Birth of a Nation, United States, the KKK movement was almost done, but after the movie,
It was huge.
they
Right.
they grow in numbers.
Yeah.
Actually, the black community burn some movies, theaters. They take it and they destroy it.
Mhm.
Of course, with a big reason,
Yeah.
because it was a racist movie. But that movie made a big movement in the United States under under the white the white shit.
The white
Um,
sheets. Yeah.
But that's the power of the movies, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can destroy a group like the black people with the Birth of a Nation, but at the same time you can create that strong feeling of nationality with the same movie.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the movies, TV. I mean, all the artistical manifestations
Mhm.
are powerful tools, powerful weapons, and we need to be careful
Mhm.
with what we are doing and why we are doing that. Another example, an easy example, if you think, I talked with them about it, if you think about the most powerful army in the world, most of the people immediately gonna think about American army, but it's not. It's the army from Israel. It's the most powerful. It's the most lethal
Right.
army in the world. And the second one is, I think, the French army or something like that, and then the American army. But in our imagination, they are the most powerful power in the world, making the war, because we see Rambo, we see Commando, we see Top Gun, we see a lot of movies, and those movies, just one soldier is able to kill 100 of people. So immediately, if the United States say something about your country, I mean, in politics, if the United States say, okay, I'm not happy with you, immediately you tremble.
No, in Canada.
Not because you're so polite.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, we get it.
Yeah. So, but of course, they threat you, and you're scared as shit because you see the movie
Yeah.
where just one soldier is able to kill thousands of people, but again, it's the power of the movies. Is an instrument.
Mhm.
So it's like a katana, the Japanese katana,
Mhm.
right? It's
Yeah.
strong, it's
Yeah.
delicate, it's pretty thin. It can break easily,
Mhm.
but in the right hands or wrong hands, can cut your head off.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that's beautiful at the same time in movies.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you can, yes, of course, like a nuclear energy. You can create electricity
Sure.
and keep warm the people, or you can destroy a couple of cities in Japan.
Right.
So that's the power of movies, and the power of the movies is in your mind.
Mhm.
So it's the idea, because there isn't nothing more powerful than an idea. That is the fucking key.
That's
So that's why it's not random why United States has Hollywood. Hollywood is the most powerful industry to spread ideas
Mhm.
and ideology all around the
Yes,
world.
absolutely.
Now, as you see, for example, who won the Second World War? Russia. But in movies, it's United States. Because they control the narrative.
Yes.
So who controls the narratives? That person controls the mind. And if you control the mind of the people, you control the house. But the most important, you control the wallet.
Yes, you do. They're good pickpockets, aren't they? They're good at picking our pockets. So you can't be in Black Panther then.
No, but guys, it's a beautiful industry. I love it. It's a joke.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. Yeah.
American ambassadors over
Yeah,
there.
yeah, hey. It's at a stand-up comedy.
That was irony. That was all irony.
But I know in that movie.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Well, I think we've covered an enormous amount of territory today, and I want to thank Alejandra
Thank you.
and Tenoch for their amazing insights, and thank you all for coming today. Please come to the festival. Tenoch will be at his screening tonight. That's an amazing performance that he gives, so let's have a round of applause for our